All right, guys, a lot to talk about on the podcast today. So first of all, we're right in the middle of it. We've got the Golficity Virtual Open. The second annual has officially kicked off.
That's right.
That's it, man. You saw we did a little video on our YouTube channel explaining how to get involved with it. Mike, you and I, we're going to be playing our Virtual Open round in just 2 days. So I'm really excited for that. We're going to be videoing that. We're going to have that on the YouTube channel so you guys can see and follow along of how we play. And we're going to be answering your questions. I know a lot of you had questions about how to get involved and things like that. Some of you have posted those in the comments on YouTube. Some of you guys have mentioned those in the Facebook group. So we'll try to answer some of those here too. Some people had questions about handicap situations, as well as how to how to post their round, where to post their round, those types of things. So we'll try to touch on that. But the great part is, no matter, even if you're listening to this about a week or so later after the fact, you can jump in and join this virtual open anytime between July 15th and August 15th. We know that some of you guys don't get a chance to get out there every week, which is why we're running this for 1 full month, and it's just one round. And being a virtual open, the nice part about that is that you can play it pretty much anywhere. It's all handled in the 18 Birdies app. I think they've got about 14,000 courses in there. We have found, one or two people who say that their local course isn't on there, but the good news is you can kind of just travel to another course and play there. That's what you and I are doing. We like to bounce around and we like to do different courses each year. So
that's right.
We're going to be doing that, but you can get to all the information by going to golficity.com/open. We'll jump to a little bit more of that in a second. As well as, if you guys are new to the 18 Birdies app, it is 100% free, and you can sign up with a free account and join the open. So this will cost you guys nothing. However, if you do want to try those extra premium features in 18 Birdies, we've worked out a deal with them to get our listeners 90-day free trial. You just got to use coupon code Golficity2018 in the app. So you guys can unlock some of those premium features, and there's some fun stuff that's been rolling out in the app. So definitely check that out. Mike, before we get a little bit deeper into what we're looking forward to with the Open, I wanted to shout out a couple of you guys, and this is why I think this is why we do this every week, right? When we get this great feedback and hearing from you guys, has just really been the motivation to keep doing this week after week. So a couple of you guys have sent us some really great messages, DMs on Instagram, which, by the way, any social channel, the best way to find us is just at Golficity. Wherever it is, it's Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, just Golficity, you'll find us. And you guys have been sending us those DMs. We appreciate that, as well as in the Facebook group. So Mike, what do you say we just highlight a couple of these?
Yeah, these are great. Go ahead. Ramble that first one off.
So Buck from Cincinnati, Ohio, he wrote to us. He said, "Hey, Frank and Mike, I'm a huge fan of you guys. Love the podcast and the YouTube channel and everything. You guys are the best. You guys produce great content. I played my round yesterday in the Virtual Open." That's great, Buck. And he said, "I'm looking forward to seeing how that goes. If you guys are ever in Cincinnati, I'd love to have you guys come to my club, play around with you guys. Keep up the great work. All the best, Buck."
Love
Absolutely. It. You know what? We've got like a running list right now of different people in different areas. As we start to travel a little bit more, we're going to hit you guys up and play with some of you guys. And that's what we've been trying to do. Last year we did the round we played at West Point, right? With some of the podcast listeners. And we're going to try to do some of that same stuff coming up soon. So really great stuff. Another one I always like highlighting when we see some of these where people are breaking some milestones. Matt B from Columbus, Ohio said, "I broke 100 for the first time today. Thank you, Frank and Mike. Been playing for about a year and hovering around 101, 105 for most of the season. Then he shot a 97 today.
Sweet.
That's awesome. Congrats."
Yep.
And this is the best part. He said, "Thankfully, it was during my Virtual Open round." And he said, "Your podcast has a lot to do with it, especially the tips on balance, grip pressure, and not automatically reaching for the longest club in my bag, plus the pre-shot routine, all things we say constantly. Not to mention," he said, "you break it all down in a way I can understand as a beginner." And you know what? That really feels good to me, because that's, I think, what we've prided ourselves on since we started this podcast 5 years ago, is just conveying, we're not pros. We're not teaching pros. We're not instructors. We're just trying to tell you guys stuff.
We're trying to figure it out too.
Yeah. As we figure it out, we're trying to just convey that here. So, that's a really great feedback. And I really appreciate it. That's a great one.
Yeah. And I love how the last word he writes is woo, WOO exclamation point. So we wooed him. I'm glad you broke 100. That's awesome news. I remember when I was there, it was not long ago, breaking 100 and then eventually breaking 90 and now working on my goal to break 80. So I'm glad you're following along. I hope you still, improve every day. And you know what, Frank, on that same note that Matt B from Columbus wrote on our Facebook group, there was another sub comment under that from Chris B, who's actually right here in New York. He said the podcast episode on grip pressure, which I believe was 2 weeks ago, or maybe last week, was a big turnaround for my game as well. I've noticed how accurate I have been holding a finish, letting me know that I stayed balanced through the swing. So again, all stuff we've been talking about throughout the years, not just last week.
Yeah.
And I love seeing it being put in play and helping people improve.
And you know what's so interesting is that last week's episode is just where we had talked about how to feel the weight of the club head. And a huge part of that was grip pressure. Mm-hmm. And what's so funny is you and I both played our weekend rounds. And not very shortly after, we both messaged each other and be like, dude, I was just pure focused on that. And it really helped.
Right.
I had it in my head because we had just done it. And I did those exact drills and steps that we talked about on how you could feel it. I actually just temporarily put that in my pre-shot routine where I just held the club out, parallel to the ground and then just slowly loosened my grip pressure until it got a 3. And I'll tell you what, I felt a lot more confidence and control out there doing that. I love the direction that my game has been heading. I shot I bested again my best round of the season. I ended up shooting an 84 last weekend. And what really felt good, man, was just starting to sink some putts again. We talk about, like, even you see it on the PGA Tour, the guy who wins every week. I mean, sure, the highlight reels always look good as some of the, the bombs they hit out there and things like that. But the guy who wins is always the guy with the hot putter. Let's just be honest about it. And my putter got a little bit hot. I ended up, I'm going to just kind of pull up my rounds here and look at it. 84. I just felt really good. And it was the back 9 that really did it for me. The front 9 I was doing, okay. I had a couple of blow up holes. I actually had 2 triple bogeys that really hurt. And I could have scored really well without those.
84 with 2 triples.
2 triples because I shot a 45 on the front and a 39 on the back. And on the back is where I really started to put it together. So that really felt good. Couple of birdies out there, things like that. And I want to just pull up the stats from that round because, and I'm going to tell you right now, you guys have been hearing me lament about my putting. And I had some of these rounds where I've got 4 or 5 3 putts, right?
Yeah.
So I only 2 putted. I'm only 3 putted twice on that, entire round. So I'm bringing them down, and I'm going to imagine if I went back through the hole by hole stats, those 3 putts were those 2 triples. So I think moving in the right direction.
Yeah, definitely right direction. I think that Bettinardi putter and the AVX golf ball has been a marriage made in heaven for you.
You're not kidding.
Because I know you love the feel of both of those combined. So you got to be feeling good with your feel on the green.
I really do. And I tell you what, they in the app, in the Arcos app, they highlight personal bests, and that was a personal best for me, 10 pars. So,
geez, 10 pars. How'd you play hole number 2? I'm just curious.
Let's look here for you. Hold on. So, second hole,
double dog leg, par 5, right?
Par 5. But you know what? This is one thing we were talking about when we were out there. I play usually the weekend round with my father and his buddies, and they did one thing that I didn't really love with the course is that when they redid our course, they moved a lot of holes, a lot of new holes and things like that. But they also went back through and they said they did it statistically based on the scores that came in, but they re-handicapped all the holes. And a couple of the holes that were previously the high handicap holes, like the number 1 handicap was that incredibly long the ninth hole, the par 4, incredibly long, very hard to reach that in 2 because you're usually hitting a long iron into that green, and to hold it in 2 is tough. So they redid it, and they ended up making a couple of the par 5s the hardest holes. And I've never really felt that par 5s, unless there's something really tricky to them, sneaky tricky, they should really be the hard handicap holes. Because to me, par 5s, those are scoring holes.
Yeah, but I mean, let's look at hole number 2 on your course. I mean, there's nothing really that easy about it. I mean, you have a double dog leg and there's water in front of the entire green with not much room for error on, even on the approach shot, right?
Yes, you hit
with
your
a
tee
narrow
shot
green.
over the river, and then if you go for the green in
One
2,
river.
you've got to go over the lake to hit it because it
Yeah.
wraps around a lake. But here's the thing, that's a very aggressive play. If you play it smart and play it to a 3 shot, this is what I'm saying. Like the miraculous thing, I think a lot of times we get out there and like, let the big dog eat, you know, it's a par 5 and we're just trying to crush 2 shots in a row. But the fact is, you can hit the ball 3 times and still get a green in regulation. I think if you start to work it backwards and look at it that way, you start to realize that those holes don't have to be as hard as we make them because we all try to be heroes on the par 5s.
Yeah.
If you play that hole and you just play a nice conservative tee shot, just put it in the fairway, and then instead of looking left and looking at all that carry to go over that water and going for that green, if instead you do what I did, I took I think a 7 iron. So I hit driver, 7 iron to lay it up to where I was now, you know.
Or were you right side past the water?
Right side past the water by the sand trap where now I have a direct shot in at the green. Then I'm a gap wedge in. And I'll tell you what, it's a lot easier to hold a gap wedge on a green and hold it tight to a pin than it is to come at it with a long iron or something like that.
Yeah, and are you getting spin on your short chip shots now? Because I am. I might be the Vokies.
The Vokies feel great, man.
The ball is literally stopping in its place.
It's
and I've
stopping,
never had that
especially
before.
because I'm attacking more with the 60 degree, which I hadn't done before. So that's been a real, you know, eye opener for me. But even this other hole, which was I think the number 1 handicap hole, is the 15th. That's that par 5 that runs behind my house.
Yes.
And for that one, it's incredibly long. It is not reachable in 2. I mean, even with my biggest drive and biggest 3-wood, I can't reach. But again, if I play it smart, if I hit even a decent drive it's somewhere on the fairway, and then I play a 5 iron, something like that.
I don't think it's a hard 3-shot hole.
Right.
Yeah.
And at the end of the day, like I can put it on and still be putting for birdie. So I'm not a huge fan of how they re-handicapped it, because those are the holes I don't necessarily need a what do you call it on? A stroke on, but whatever. I digress. But yeah, so that was an interesting one. And then we'll continue to report back and talk more about, you know, how the clubs, I know a lot of you guys have been asking how we've been doing since the new fitting, but a big thing that we're going to talk about today on the show is how to adjust to new clubs, because there's a lot of people that are getting out there and they're listening to some of our advice, and then as they're retooling their bag, they're going for fittings or whatever they may be doing. And a lot of you guys are talking about this in the Facebook group, and we appreciate you guys, you know, reporting back in the group and letting us know like some of the different buying decisions you're making and stuff like that. So there's a lot of people who are getting new clubs and stuff like that. And this is something that, you know, we often retool every couple of seasons, and there's going to be an adjustment period. So I want to talk about that. We're going to dive into it. But there's one thing before we do too, Mike. This is like a little sidebar, and what reminded me of it was how many people, you know, had written these nice things to us, you know, about like the podcast and how they're enjoying it. And I actually haven't even had a chance to mention this to you yet, Mike, but I started thinking about it, and it burns me up a little bit. It's not my favorite thing to do when I'm like writing, like, or like when I'm answering this, or when I say, you know, Golficity fans, or if I say listeners of the show, when I like refer to you guys out there, because I feel like that's too one-sided. I agree. You know, we've been really working on making this a two-way conversation by bringing you guys questions and stuff like that into the show, by using the Facebook group, which has just been awesome. You know, I feel like we're just part of that group, you know, more than being, you know, administrating it. You know, I feel like we're just part of that group. So I would love to come up with like a name for our community, like for our listeners, so to speak, so I can stop.
What could we call? Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm going to kind of outsource it. I want to hear you guys, you know, your ideas, you know, and something that we could call all of, and something we can refer to us all as, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like something with Golficity, something we can throw in there. But I want to make it like more so like we're, you know, it's like, because we really feel like we're developing a community here. It's not so much that one way would be like Golficity fans, because that to me sounds too much like you're on one side of the fence and we're on the other, you know?
Right. Totally agreed. And I've always felt this has been kind of the same army, you know, trying to go out and accomplish the same goal ever since, you know, day one. You know, like anyone who's come into the Facebook group or anyone, you know, it just feels like, hey, just welcoming another member to the club. And it's been really cool. And I totally agree with you. And it'd be kind of cool what we can get out there. We can get some cool ideas.
Maybe you're onto something there.
Chris.
Maybe Golficity Army. I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe
something like that. But I know you guys are going to be more creative than we are. So if you come up with an idea, post it in the Facebook group. Maybe we'll get a couple of the different ideas and put them to a vote.
Yeah, I love it. And speaking of creativity in the Facebook group, this post about the buttons to press.
Loved it.
Yeah. I mean,
get you thinking.
Raymond Bell post, which buttons do you press? So there's a red, blue, and yellow, orange, purple, and green. There's 6 buttons. And I'll ramble them real quick.
And you only can press one.
Can only press one. So add 100 yards to your drive, get rid of your slice, get rid of your hook, never 3-putt, golf with Tiger Woods, or free booze when you play. And Ray writes, I'm smashing the blue button, which is get rid of the slice. What about you? So Frank, what do you do here?
I was like, all right, for as much as it's a once in a lifetime, would love to hit that purple, golf with Tiger Woods.
Yep.
You know, I mean, but then I thought, all right, I'm probably going to be playing this game for another, you know, if God willing, another 40, 50 years, right? So I'm like, I got to go never 3-putt. I know that if I was to never 3-putt, I think I could immediately be shooting in the high 70s, which is where I would love to have my game. I'm a very happy man with my game shooting in the high 70s, but I know putting, you know, that's where the money's made. I've always had a little bit of trouble there. Plus, I think one guy in the group had a really good point. He said, if I hit that button, never 3-putt, I could get incredibly aggressive with my first putt because I would never have to worry about 3-putting.
Yeah, that's a good point.
Right? And then you end up 1-putting a lot more.
Yeah, no, 1-putting. You won't be leaving those putts short.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's a good point. And I agreed. I wanted to press the purple right away. But like you, I took the approach that what's the one thing that if I cured, I would shoot in the 70s consistently. And for me, it'd be the blue button, getting rid of the slice. You know, if I did not slice the ball, I would not have many second shots off of the fairway, behind trees, kind of blind shots, have to chip back on. The strokes I would save would be incredible. So that's main focus for me right there.
Well, the good news is you kind of know at least some of what to work on. When we had the guys from Me and My Golf, Piers and Andy, we were lucky enough to have them analyze the swing. They gave you some really good pointers and stuff like that. Just a matter of getting out there and having the time to put that range work in, you know?
Mm-hmm. That's what it comes down to for sure.
That's it. Oh, by the way, one other little thing before we kind of dive into the meat of this episode. You'll love to hear this. I hit the hybrid really well, man. Really? I did. I was like, all right, let's do this. Right. So I was, you know how I haven't had any confidence in it, but it was another long par 5. Definitely was not reachable in 2, even though I hit a good drive. I was off the fairway. I was, just in the rough, but it wasn't really heavy rough. It was a little bit lighter rough, but I'm like, I was still a ways out. It might've been reachable for you, but it wasn't reachable for me. I think I was like 260 out. Right. So it's like, it's on that thing where it might be reachable if I could lay into a 3-wood there, but with the lie in that little bit of rough, I'm like, I don't think I can get all of it with a 3-wood. And so this is a situation where I would normally hit my 3-iron, but I traded the 3-iron in during the fitting for the 3 hybrid. And here's the thing. I know my 3-iron shot from there. I can usually move it down the fairway, but I usually don't get a lot of height, and I usually have to really muscle into it to move it through that rough, right? Right. I tell you what, I was like, you know what? I don't need to reach. I don't need to muscle into this. I'm just going to let the club do the work. Just swing it nice and easy. I did that whole thing we talked about, grip pressure. I loosened up on the grip. And what I was impressed with, even though I didn't smack it a ton of distance, I think I ended up hitting it like 200 or something like that, like 190, 200. Nice. But I tell you what I was really impressed with, I got that ball in the air. Yeah. Like, I know that everyone tells me like that's what the hybrid's designed to do. And I'm used to like having to kind of do that work with my irons. But, I was impressed with how easy it was to get that ball up in the air. And I got, some good height out of that.
You're still swinging up on it, aren't you?
A little bit, but on that particular swing, I had drilled in my mind what Kevin Sprecher, who did the fitting for us, what he said is he's like, Frank, hit down. I know you want to hit up on it because you're looking at that bigger head. And it's reminding you of the driver. He's like, but hit down on it. So all I thought about in that instance was swing easy and hit down on it. and it got right up in the air, man. And it felt good. It felt a little bit effortless.
See, that's a good feeling, and we're going to talk about that tonight because you obviously have some things that are working. So I'm excited to hear that. That's for sure.
No doubt. So let's do this. Let's do some quick words from our sponsors here, and then I want to dive into it. I want to talk about what it feels like adjusting to your clubs, and then later in the show, we're gonna call on you guys to post some of your own experiences in the Facebook group and let us know, what it was like for you adjusting to new clubs whenever the last time that happened. But Mike, as you know, your game is important to you. That's why Titleist is committed to ensuring that every golf ball delivers superior quality and consistency, golf ball to golf ball, dozen to dozen, so that every ball performs exactly the same way, shot after shot.
Yeah, and what amazes me about Titleist is that they own the design, the technology, and the manufacturing. They conduct all of the testings and all of the quality checks. You and I saw it firsthand when we visited Ball Plant 3, and we got the full tour. And more than 1,100, get this, 1,100 passionate associates that work in Titleist owned and operated facilities. They control every step of the process. This is discipline. I mean, this is the discipline that sets Titleist apart. It allows them to provide golfers with total performance and confidence, which we've been talking a lot about. That's key in your golf game, that you need to shoot your best possible score. So check it out. It's Titleist, the number one ball for every player and the number one ball in golf. Make sure you choose the best for your game.
All right, guys. So if you have back pain like me, or even if you've been lucky enough to avoid it, I'm jealous of you. But if you are, you need to check out the Teeter Inversion table to keep your back and joints feeling great. Teeter is hands down the most well-known name in inversion tables since 1981. These guys have crafted a way to use gravity and your own body weight to decompress your spine and relieve pressure on your discs and surrounding nerves. It's also the only inversion table brand that has been both safety certified by UL Laboratories and FDA cleared as a Class 1 medical device for back pain and related conditions. Decompressing on a Teeter for a few minutes a day is an easy way to maintain a healthy spine and active lifestyle without the pain.
Yeah, I mean, no wonder over 3 million people have put their trust in Teeter. I mean, that's got to tell you something right there. So for a limited time, you can get Teeter's upgraded model of the inversion table with traction handles, easy reach ankle system, stretch max handles. Plus, they're going to throw in a free vibration cushion for the ultimate muscle relaxation. And get this, it's only $349. That's a savings of $150. If you go to teeter.com/golf podcast, that's one word, get the Teeter inversion table plus a free vibration cushion, free shipping, free returns, and a 60-day money back guarantee. That's teeter.com/golf podcast. Again, TEETER.com/golf podcast.
Okay, so we're going to talk about how to adjust to new clubs. And a lot of this is setting that expectation, because the main thing we all want to avoid, and this is one of those things that, maybe keep this, if you're not getting new clubs right now, maybe keep this podcast in your back pocket. We've got in the app now, in the Golficity app, an ability to save your favorites, and you can bookmark different content. So this is one that I would say to bookmark if you're ever thinking about, and we all know eventually you're going to get new clubs, because a good time to refer back to this is that one frustrating moment that so many of us have had is when we go out and we invest in new clubs, and then we have that out of the gate bad round or two, and then we are just lamenting, or four. Whatever.
Yeah, let me throw that in there.
Yeah. And what happens?
But I'll tell you more about that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but look what happens. We're lamenting. We're like, I spent all this money on these new clubs, and you just feel like a huge blow to your confidence. So I think one thing we want to do today is first get it out there and let people know that no matter who you are or what level you're at, there's going to be an adjustment period. We'll talk a little bit about even the tour pros. So one thing to do is to, cut yourself a little bit of a break, change your expectations a little bit, and know that nothing is ever going to be like this miracle pill you swallow that, like, as soon as you get this new club, the next time out, it's just going to be a game changer. Or right. even if in some ways it is, even if you play a great round, we've seen people before, like, they go out, they play one good round, then all of a sudden it kind of goes downhill for a while. I think the important thing we need to understand is that there's going to be an adjustment period. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about a little bit about how long to expect an adjustment period to last. We're going to talk about ways that you can shorten that adjustment period, different, proactive things you can do. Also trying not to change too many things at once. And we'll talk a little bit about the PGA Tour Pro. So Mike, let's hop in there. I know you right now, that's one thing that you've been focusing and working on. I know you've been putting some range sessions in and stuff with the new clubs.
Right.
And I know you had that little bit of frustration is getting used to some things like distances and things like that your first couple rounds out there.
Yeah, I mean, so let's take Rory McIlroy, whenever it was, whatever year it was. We all know he switched. He moved over to Nike. He got rid of his, Scotty Cameron putter, and he changed to the Nike golf ball. And you know what? This game is very much mental. So you're used to playing certain things for a long period of time. All of a sudden you get something new that's fitted for you or not fitted for you, depends on how you approach it. Mm-hmm. But no matter what, I think it's going to change the way you approach your game, no matter what, because you've always said this to me. So maybe it's the way the clubs look when you look down, and I totally agree with that. Maybe it's the way the clubs feel. I have some heavier Graham shafts now, so where I'm connecting with the ball is probably a little different, with my swing. So timing issues might be off. And there's so many variables, small variables to change a shot. I heard this the other day that new clean grooves will actually shave some of the urethane off of golf balls. So brand new clubs with the grooves that are brand new, or just your current clubs, if you clean the grooves out completely, it'll shave the golf ball. And it's not really a bad thing because it produces more spin, which helps you stick more greens. Now, you and I, we would never really think about that, nor would we really care if the white flakes were flaking off the golf ball, right?
Right.
But I'm trying to, I guess, express a point that these little variables can change things from newer clubs or different fitted clubs or heavier clubs or lighter clubs. So I'm just not there with the field that I've had over the last 7 years. Played those clubs for 7 years.
Wow, that's a long time with those sticks.
Yeah, so I'm very familiar. I know that certain clubs will cut more than others. I'll play more of a fade. So now that my clubs are fit to me, I'm playing that fade because I've been used to it for 7 years. Guess what? The ball's going dead straight left.
Right.
That's the problem I'm having. I'm not.
You got to learn to trust them.
I'm not playing poorly because of the clubs. I'm just not trusting them and hitting the shots that I should be hitting now. So, the other day I was 124, 125 off a green, dead center of the fairway. Beautiful drive. It was a long par four. Super excited I was there, and I got this 48-degree wedge. I'm coming off of a 52-degree gap wedge, which is my 125 club. This 48 probably now I know it's probably more 135, 130, 138, 140. Of course, I sailed the shot directly over the green. I thought it was tracking, and it was over the back of the green.
Yeah.
Unfortunately for me, there was water behind that green. So that hole became a blow-up hole. And that discouraged me. And that mental discouragement carried me for the next few holes. And then eventually the rest of the round just unraveled. So there's a lot of things I have to put together, but I want you to convey the point that it's not the clubs. It's way more mental. I'm just not there. I'm not used to it, but had an awesome range session the other day. I went back to that waggle. I think you're going to hate me on Friday when we play because I have a little waggle and a little Ricky Fowler like club back, all just to feel the club head to reduce the grip pressure and to swing nice. And I was hitting the balls perfect.
Yeah. Well, and that's the other thing too, that grip pressure thing worked for both of us, but I think that kind of brings up in my mind like another thing that often happens with people with a club change is that they end up changing a lot more things all at once. So what will happen is the clubs change, and like that's already a big enough variable there that you just got to work through. But then some guys will like start adjusting their swing and changing their swing as well, or changing key parts. Yeah. And now it's all like, whoa, there's a lot of change going on, and you have a lot more to get used to. So there's different things that come into play there. But yeah, I think one thing, and I actually was just poking around the internet a little bit, researching before we did this episode, and I saw a lot of guys ask that question, like it's a very popular question online. It's how long does it take to adjust to new clubs? Because a lot of people go through this type of thing. And, a lot of different answers, a lot of different things come up as far as what people had experienced. But one kind of common thing that I found was, and one way to kind of eliminate how long it takes in that adjustment period, and is something that we constantly harp on, is the idea of getting fitted. It seemed like if there was one common thread amongst everyone's different experiences, it was that if you go for, fitted clubs, the adjustment period is much shorter than non-fitted. There was one guy who said he bought some stuff off the rack and he was just like all over the place. And then he realized that basically the shafts were junk, and then he had to switch them out. And then all of a sudden he slowly did whatever. Another guy made an interesting point. I hadn't thought about this, Mike. And he said, everybody talks about how expensive a fitting is. Well, we've also said that, and we've talked about here different ways you can get a fitting for free or cheap, right?
Right.
But he goes, everyone talks about that, but what they don't talk about is when you go buy something off the rack and it's a mess and you hate it and you spend like 5 or 6 rounds trying to get your gaming gear and working with these clubs. He goes, what about all that cost thrown out the window for all those tee times, playing like a mess? And I'm like,
right.
It's a little bit of a stretch because you're still out there having fun playing golf. If you're
right.
If you're me, I enjoy playing no matter what. But he's kind of right in a way too. It's like, yeah, I get what you're saying, and that's where he's saying like, just invest in it and whatever, and it'll help shorten that up. But one other general consensus that I saw was people said it usually takes typically, I saw the same response kind of popping up over and over, about 2 to 4 weeks to get used to a new set of irons. A lot of guys say they'll get used to a new driver pretty quickly. That's usually something that, they'll see some benefits right away. And sometimes, you know how it is with driver, you go through slumps and you go through like hot streaks just in general,
sure.
But overall irons going to take a little bit more time. And a big part of that is loft. And I think there was another common thing that I saw pop up. A lot of guys saying the same thing is when they say that getting used to it, like what exactly does that mean? A lot of guys said for them, getting used to it was getting used to distances again. And a lot of people either overshooting or undershooting their targets. And it's because there is that change. So, example would be you and I, right? We moved to the Titleist AP3 irons, which are stronger lofted. Right. So we ended up having to gap ourselves differently with our gap wedges, as you explained, because both of our pitching wedges were much less loft than our previous pitching wedge. So there, to me, it's kind of like, it's a totally understandable problem. Is saying like, okay, they're lofted different. They're going to carry different. There's different shafts. Right. They're better crafted clubs than what we were playing. So we just need to get used to how far they travel. I think that's something that you'll get just by being out there and doing it.
Yeah. And you know what? You mentioned something earlier. I think you said setting expectations, because, what's funny is when you and I went through the whole experience of getting fitted, receiving the clubs, opening the clubs, we're texting each other. We were exciting each other like, we're going to be so good, man. We can't wait to get out there. And let me tell you something, that messes with your mental game, because expectations, I just put it through the roof. And even my wife said when the clubs came, she was just like blown away by how beautiful these clubs are. She's like, you better be really good at golf now.
Right.
That was her exact line. And I said, well, I hope so. But, expectations were high that like, I have more of a stressful feeling when I play this game, because I demand more out of my golf game now because of this new purchase or these new clubs. Mm-hmm. So that kind of messed with the mental game for me a little bit as well. So expectations, I guess you kind of have to keep them low, right?
Well, yeah. And look, it depends on, like, again, the amount of pressure you put on yourselves, but that's why a lot of guys play their first round of the season really great, because they have such low expectations that there's no pressure. It's like, I'm just be happy out there playing, and whatever. But yeah, there's going to be that kind of goes with it. But again, there's so much that has to do with confidence. And there's one thing that I don't want to overlook either. You talked about how pretty the clubs were, right? And they're gorgeous clubs. But they haven't, some of my stuff that I was reading through, some even tour pros were saying that look do matter. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And some guys will say, like, I don't care if like a club is performing incredibly well. If it's hideous and I don't want to look at it, they said, I won't play it. And I think part of that reason is I don't think it's a vanity thing. I think it's more so a confidence thing. This game really boils down to, we talk about it being all a mental game. And what's a big part of that is confidence. So the club has to give you confidence. And I think if you look down at something that it may not even be, it's subjective, right? So what one person thinks is ugly, another person might think is beautiful.
Yeah.
But it's more so for you. If there's something that just looks off or feels off about it, that's where you might, whatever, it actually might have a real, in other words, don't just let that slide by, like give that some thought. And it's something too, that if you are working with a fitter, it doesn't hurt to let them know, be like, yeah, you know what? I feel like I'm hitting this well, but there's something about the look. It's bothering me, some guys have said where you really see that is when they make a big change, like going from like really big, like cavity, back like irons to like a blade, something like big change like that. They're like, whoa, this looks way different. But
Right.
there's a certain degree of it that's no doubt about it. It's going to always be in our head. And I think you got to walk that fine line between getting out of your head, but also understanding that if it's going to be too much for your head, move on to something different.
Right, right. And one of the things I've been hating the most over these last 4 rounds is getting up to the ball or approaching the ball or addressing the ball, I should say, and not being confident about my distance. So I got up to a 175 shot the other day, and I didn't know whether I should stick with the usual 7 or is it an 8 now, because I've had a couple of good 175, 188 irons that I've struck really clean and nice. And I just didn't know. So I said, you know what? Let's trust the new clubs and let's hit that 8 iron. And of course, I just had too much thought. I think I chunked it and came up short anyway. But, there was just too much thought process before the swing. And I got to eliminate that. I have to eliminate that.
A large part of it is getting out of your head. And however you got to do that, whether you got to just find ways to rationalize it to yourself or something different. I was actually thinking about this for you earlier because I'm like, how can I kind of phrase this that might change Mike's mind a little bit? Because I remember one thing that you were saying was with the new fitted clubs, you kept saying like they were heavier and like I have to get used to them being heavier, right? Mm-hmm. And a large part of why they're heavier, it makes sense because that's what, when during the fitting, Kevin was doing that. He did that for me. He went to heavier clubs so I could feel more of the weight of the club head. But then I thought about it, like you saw the 95 gram shaft, like I was struggling with, whatever. And then we went up to the 115 shaft and I was hitting it much better, 115 gram shaft. But there's obviously there's going to be a part of that is the mechanics. And as he said, in my case, was feeling the club head. But I think too many times, like we get in our own head and we think, oh, these clubs are heavier, but then the reality sets in. I thought about it. I'm like, okay, so that is a 20 gram difference. Here's an interesting thing. A golf ball weighs 43 grams.
Yeah.
So we're talking about the difference in weight is actually less than half of a golf ball.
But you could feel it.
Right. But you can feel it. But I think sometimes we make it more than it is.
Maybe we make it more than what it is. Yeah.
Right.
I agree.
If you start thinking of something as heavy, sometimes it is more heavy than it, what I mean? Does that make sense?
No, totally. Yeah, I see what you're saying. And even
like we talk ourselves out of something is I guess what I'm trying to say.
Right. And proof of that is the one of the guys, I blanked on his name. I think you have it there. He posted in the Facebook group about his rental clubs that were just these old rental clubs, but he ended up shooting his handicap.
Yeah. Well, and that's a certain degree where like it just shows like sometimes we really overemphasize something in the wrong way. I always think that yes, the equipment can make these improvements for us. And that's why we've done things like invest in fittings. But sometimes we also give it too much credence that you got to understand, like you can still shoot good scores with what you have. Like that's why I'm saying like, getting out of your head in some ways. And this is actually, it was Daniel Mayer. And he said, Are these the worst rental clubs ever? This picture is hilarious. I don't even know how they put this set together. It looks like they went to a bunch of garage sales and grabbed the worst club at each one and put them in there. But he said he still shot his handicap on a challenging Trent Jones Jr. course. And I mean, you look at these things, that's something.
Yeah, it's pretty bad.
That's hodgepodge right there of clubs.
Yeah, it really is. And by the way, 228 episodes of this show. We're going almost 5 years now. And I think you've botched every single person's last name.
Oh yeah, I can't say last name.
That's straight up Meyer. I mean.
Yeah. Meyer. Sorry, guys.
You went Mayer?
Mayer? Sorry, guys.
That's all right. I don't think you haven't gotten a last name right. So you're going Daniel M next time.
I'm also that guy, and my wife makes fun of me for this all the time, that I failed every spelling contest, every spelling class and test up through high school, dude. I was just the worst.
Yeah.
The worst. Like, it was to the point that like, everyone knew it. And if we had like a spelling thing, like everyone in the class would be like, Colin Frank. Because they think it was hilarious how far off I was.
Yeah.
So, and sorry about botching those names, guys. I'm the worst at that.
And now look at you. You can strike a 7 iron like the best of them. So look where it got you.
As long as I don't have to spell it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, so that I thought was a good point. And just in general, like a lot of us have played with rental clubs. I mean, it just shows you can adjust, you can whatever. So I'm saying that because I want to let you guys know there's going to be a certain aspect of it that's going to be in your head. But that said, so one way that you can make this adjustment period a little bit, quantifiably a little bit easier and faster would be to go for a fitting, because often, with unfitted clubs, it's going to be a longer adjustment period because you're adjusting to the clubs rather than having the clubs adjust to you. That's one thing that Kevin had said in the fitting. Another thing is it really takes just time being out there, range sessions, dialing your distances. If you're going to make the financial commitment to a new set of clubs, it's a good idea to also make at least the mental, time commitment to those clubs. Know that it's going to take some time. Get out there and do it. Even the pros do this. Okay. And what we had talked about before, mentioning how the pros are also affected. Most pros, and these are the guys who are getting clubs thrown at them constantly. They're getting paid to play new clubs, so, and they're getting huge money thrown at them for this. I saw one where I think it was Callaway was paying guys in the field. Anybody in the field who played with the new Big Bertha driver was getting $3,000 a week to play with it. So all these guys are switching. So there's a huge financial part upside of it too. So these guys jump in and they do it. But when they make the smart way that they make these club changes and these equipment changes, you'll usually see them do that towards the end of the season and in the off season, because even pros who could pretty much hit a walking stick better than we can hit, our best club in our bag, because they have that adjustability. But even with them, they have that time that they need with it. So they'll do it during the off season. They'll give themselves some time away from competition to get used to it. Another thing I heard it was smart was one guy said, no matter what, the range is still going to be different than being actually out there on the course. So when he's making any type of equipment change, he'll usually test it out on Wednesdays during pro-ams.
Yeah.
Because he said it's the most relaxed kind of atmosphere. You're just out there talking with the guys, having, a little bit of fun. So they'll do it there. And then that way you get that course time with it.
I love that you just said that, because someone came into the office today, sat down, we were having a cup of coffee, we were talking, and he's like, I want to tell you a story about, I forgot who it was who told me this. Anyway, I think Jason Day, I think it was at Bay Hill, in fact, he went out and he was playing these brand new wedges. And he played the Wednesday practice round with him just to get used to him. Yeah. And he played horribly with him. And after the round, he went into the tour van and he said, these are no good. This is what's going on. This is whatever. They fixed him. He won the tournament. He bought 3 sets, or he ordered 3 sets of them right after he won the tournament. So, it's amazing, the little tweaks. And you know what? Speaking of pros, Frank, I saw an awesome interview with Billy Horschel on Golf Channel back in 2016 when we were doing some research for this episode. And the conversation he had with those guys when he switched to the PXG clubs, and I'm kind of paraphrasing it a little bit, he said switching irons is one thing, but people don't realize how big it is to change golf balls. And I thought this was such a cool comment. He says, pro golfers, they're so used to seeing a certain ball flight that the slightest change would just won't work. Mm-hmm. So he goes on to saying that's very helpful, because if you change anything with your clubs and you keep the same ball, then you just need to tweak the clubs. Now, you and I we're not tour pros. We always say we're just amateurs. We're just learning this game. But we kind of went through both in the last 6 months. I was never a Pro V1 guy until, leading up to learning more about Titleist, working with Titleist. So I was always just playing the balls that I either found or the balls that I was given or the balls that, I bought off the shelf. So we're going through both a ball fitting and a club fitting, and it's a lot to get used to in one season. So I'm not making excuses, but I think it's a lot to absorb. I think we'll eventually get there. But I thought that was so interesting about the ball.
I agree, and I think the more and more you play, the more you really start to realize and respect the ball as a part of the equipment. Yeah, we'll drop God knows how much every couple seasons on a set of clubs, but then we lament over just spending a couple more bucks per dozen on a ball. We end up reaching for a cheap ball, or we play, like you said, anything we find in the woods. I'll tell you, probably about 4 or 5 seasons ago is when I first started going down this path of being more of a ball nerd or ball snob, whatever you want to call it, where I'll actually find stuff in the woods and stuff like that, and I'll just put it in my bag and use it as a ball to hit into the woods as a practice shot or something, or but I won't actually put them into play, because I start to realize you really do, once you develop a feel for a ball, it does change a lot just hitting. So I've gotten way away from just hitting anything. Right now I'm just, as I've talked about here before, I am strictly between the AVX and the Titleist Tour Soft. I like the feel of both of them. My real preference is the AVX, but I've been dabbling with the Tour Soft as well. But it's so true. I mean, you look at the pros. I mean, obviously they have much more consistent ball flight in general than we do. And so they're going to notice a nuance more than we are, but it's true. They we've been on plenty of ranges before with them. You see them, they bring whatever ball they play is what they're hitting at the range. They're not just hitting any range ball.
Right.
You know what I mean? If they play the Pro V1 or the Pro V1X, that's what they're hitting on the range. You know, they bring your own bag of ball down there and then that's what they're hitting. So yeah, there's a huge aspect to that too. There really is.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, and speaking of which, going back to with the Tour Pros, the putters, you and I have seen this too a lot when you're on the putting green and all the putter manufacturers put all their putters out there for guys just to grab and try. Because they know this is one thing that guys on the tour do often change because they know a hot putter is what wins them money. Mm-hmm. So if they're having a little bit of struggle, they may just pick something up and try it out. But again, it proves the point even more. Like it takes an adjustment period. Like I think everyone knows that with a putter. So like, realize it with other clubs too. It's a big part of it.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
So if we take anything away from this, I want guys just to go like, get out there and know, like pre-commit to it both mentally and with your practice time of knowing there's going to be an adjustment with your new clubs and just work through it because in the end, it's going to be a smart decision, especially if you go with something fitted.
Right. And this also, I mean, it could just apply to one club. Right. I mean, getting a new, it doesn't have to be, you're not retooling the whole bag like we did. You know, if you're just getting a new driver or getting a new wedge, anything, I think you're going to go through it somehow.
No doubt about it. So like, it's the same thing. And if it's only one or two clubs, it actually is easier. It's a little bit less range time than going through a full bag. But if you do it, whatever you do, like as long as you resign yourself to that, you know, it's going to take a little bit of time. You come out the other end, you have a little bit of that benefit that comes with it.
Yeah, for sure. Frank, I wanted to give a quick shout out to our friend Greg Angelillo. He was on our show a long time ago.
Yeah.
It was I forgot what episode it was, but it was an episode that we're playing around with the scratch golfer and what you learn from it. Anyway, Greg sent me an email yesterday and he goes, I fared pretty well against the young men, and I didn't know what that meant, and I saw a link to the New Jersey men's amateur.
Yeah.
He finished T11. I think he's not as young as the guys that were ahead of him, but he could still play. And I think he shot he went 75, 74, and then weekend 71, 72 to contention.
That's awesome.
But I mean, it's awesome. And, you know, just knowing people and playing golf regularly with people like that, of that caliber, it's such a treat. So I congratulate him. That's an awesome
And that's
finish.
one of those things. You got to set it up. I want to get around him with him.
Yeah, we're going to do it. And you know what? I'm going to tell him to listen to this episode and scroll all the way to the end now that we threw him in at the end.
There you go.
But I'm going to tell him, you know, listen, Frank wants to get out there with you just as bad as I do again. So,
well, you get so many guys who like get very intimidated to be paired up with someone who's as good as Greg is.
Yeah.
But I take the opposite. You know what I mean? I know like my game comparatively would not look very good standing next to his game, but I just feel like that's when you learn. I mean,
yes.
Look how much you even learned that day we got to play with Molinari.
Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely.
You just watch and you realize that these guys, you know, they're not doing anything that's like this magic out there. They're just super consistent and super smart with the way they play. So it almost, like I said, people call it like boring golf. Sometimes it looks boring because they're just out there just like consistently hitting fairways, hitting greens. It's not like they're doing anything wild. Now, maybe in Greg's case, because he still holds the record as the only person to have a hole-in-one on a par 4 in competition.
Right.
But I mean, that's ridiculously impressive. But I mean, most of the time, it's just that they're just really smart with the way they approach the game and when they play it. And I feel like from playing with people who play that caliber in that way, you just start to absorb it and you start to get a little bit better yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? I'm gonna take it one step further and I'm gonna shout him out, put him on the spot. Greg, let's get Frank to Baltusrol. All right.
Oh yeah.
So we want to treat him. That's where Greg is a member of. So I'd love to get you out there if I could. If he could,
I'm all over it. We'll do it.
He'll probably take you. And I'll have to stay home, but still, it's worth it.
That's great.
Awesome.
All right, so guys, just to kind of wrap it all up, like I said, I want to hear your stories and I know there's going to be a lot of good ones out there. When you switched clubs, if you purchased a new set, how, or even one or just two clubs, how did the adjustment period go for you? Is there anything you did? Is there anything that you tried? Or if you're thinking about retooling, what are your concerns, whatever, post them in the Facebook group. Just go to Facebook, just search the Golf Podcast or Golficity. You'll see it pop up. It's a free group. Join it, hop in there, check it out. I'll also link to it in the show notes, which you can get to by going to golficity.com /episode 228, or the show notes are always in our app, our free app, which is available for Android and iOS, golficity.com/app to find that. But make sure you report back. And Mike, here you go. You're going to pick on me again because I can't do these last names. I'm going to try. Uh-oh. So here's in our Facebook group, Jesse Nielsen. He posted a picture. I think that's right.
I think you nailed that one.
I think I got that one. Yeah. He posted a picture in the group. He just upgraded. He just, I guess is just getting started with the game, and he just upgraded from his starter set of clubs, and he finally has a full set of clubs. He went out and got the bomb techs. They look, awesome. I've always, like I said, I've been a fan of BombTech because I like supporting those smaller companies too. I feel like they put a lot of love into their clubs, and I feel like that it's a good option for if you're on a tighter budget, or if you're new to the game, because they're not super expensive, and the quality and the technology is pretty decent. You know what I mean? So and I think that I'm interested to hear how it works out. So Jesse, congratulations on the new set, and let us know how you progress with them, because like I said, there might be some growing pains, but it'll be worth it in the long run for sure.
That's for sure.
Yeah. So all right. So like I said, hop in the group, let us know. And the other thing is, post it in there. Like I said at the top of the show, I want to hear if you guys got some ideas of what we can start to refer to ourselves as, this Golficity community that's been growing so much over the past couple of years. Because I really feel like that, I like that idea, making it like feeling more like a community than a one-way conversation. So make sure you post those in the group, and we'll let everybody know about how our virtual open round went. If you get out there and you play it, good luck. Hit the links, enjoy your round, and then we'll be talking as we get closer to the end. We'll be talking about those prizes, which are going to be giving away a lot of great prizes as door prizes, and I'm looking forward to giving those away. But right now, man, I am having so much fun checking that leaderboard, and which if you're in the tournament, you can check the live leaderboard anytime, and you can see those live scores as they come in. It's just great to see everybody's names on the leaderboard. And sometimes when I'm at work, I'll just pop in there and take a look and see where everybody's at. And I'm actually just kind of navigating to it right now. Let's see, we got the gross and the net. So we got, and believe it or not, Mike, we're just like not quite a full week into the tournament yet. I think we're about 4 or 5 days in, and we've got 189 players in the field right now. So
yeah, that's so great. And you know what? We're seeing a lot of really, really good scores. We're seeing a lot of honest scores. You're going to get your occasional, ones that are a little suspicious, that are a lot suspicious, that are obviously not entered correctly. Right. And we will be very prudent about editing or fixing and making that right. So don't worry about that. Which unfortunately,
and I know you guys have asked before, we can't edit them in the 18 Birdies app. We spoke with 18 Birdies again today, and I think that some of these are just done by mistake. We had one guy who shot a gross 41 under par. He shot a 31, but I don't think we had this problem last year. I think what's happened is some people entered their score in relation to par rather than entering their strokes. So, for instance, if they were 1 over on a hole, they're entering a 1, but it's not a hole in 1, and I think that's the problem.
That amazes me. I mean, I guess some people really just don't know how to keep score in this game. But I mean, you'd think it would be that obvious, but maybe
you would think, I don't know. Maybe
with
some
the
people
app,
aren't sure with the app, and we try to get you out there. But anyway, I said before we would highlight some of the better scores seen coming in, and there's been some really great ones. Maybe I should have you read the names.
Yeah. So we got R. Curley, which is our real leader here, -4, shot a 68 gross.
Yeah.
And I believe he had, or she, I don't know if this is male or female, but I think there was 1 or 2 eagles, a lot of birdies. No, 1 eagle, a lot of birdies. He even had a double, couple of bogeys, but still went out there and fired an impressive 68. So we got some of that. We got some 71s, got some low 70s. We even have some people who shot in the 120s. So, hey, listen, no matter what game you got, just get in there.
Get in there. It's all about getting out and having fun. That's at the end of the day. That's why this year we decided not to tie the prizes to where you finish. We want to make sure that everybody has a chance to win some prizes. And the other thing is, one thing I want to just make sure everybody understands with the handicaps this year, we did cap handicaps at 20. I do fully apologize for anybody who is legitimately over a 20 handicap and that kind of, clips you from getting some of the strokes you deserve. Unfortunately, is not a huge amount of options when we set up these tournaments. There's not a whole lot of tweaking we can do. But last year we had a number of people who were either unsure what their handicap was or wasn't sure how the system worked, and were entering some very, very high handicaps, 36 plus handicaps, and then going out there and firing in the 80s. So they were coming in the 50s or lower. So I apologize for anybody who legitimately was cut off by that. There's just going to be no way to run a tournament this big and make everyone happy. But unfortunately, we had to just kind of cap it somewhere. So we capped them at 20 this year.
Yeah, and you know what I say to that? Because there are a lot of people out there that are above 20, and I get it. But just go out there and play your best round and just play for the gross. Because we're giving away prizes not based on finish this year.
Right.
We're giving away door prizes, and we're just randomly picking names. So basically, you just enter, play golf because you love to play the game. Log it on this. You'll have fun doing it. You'll be on a leaderboard, which is the coolest part.
Yep.
And you're in the running. So
exactly.
Don't let the 20 handicap discourage you.
Yeah, don't let you discourage you. And look, we're going to be doing this as an annual thing, so maybe next year we'll change it up a little bit. But this year we use that as a starting point just to kind of avoid some of the very, very, very high handicaps being entered, and then the scores looking just silly low. Because I think what happened was a lot of times last year, guys would see the tournament halfway through and then they wouldn't enter because they would be like, "There's no way I'm going to shoot a net 40," right? So, and that's why this year we didn't want to discourage anybody from that, which is why we've opened it up to everyone is going to have a chance to win these prizes. So anyway, so check it out. Check out the Golficity Virtual Open. Go to golficity.com/open, get registered, get in there, play. We'll talk about it more in the upcoming episodes. We'll see you guys next week.